Change this Dan Davies. Hardcastle. Oh yeah. Why waving her hand? Oh yes, Malcolmson. Hello everyone, and welcome to Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies. My name is Brent Frain. I'm the host. The show is also known as PWD Allies podcast. Please subscribe, click, share, like, whatever you gotta do to stay up to date on all the current podcasts that are available, and check it out on your favorite app where you best suited for you. Today, I am my own guest, and I am actually going to be talking about disability housing, divide and discriminate. That's right. It's divide and discriminate on affordable housing. And so with that being said, Neil and I are going to talk about housing. I mean, who doesn't get affected with the high price of housing these days? I mean, my gosh, Neil, I mean, these prices, I remember, pre-2015, I was living in Langley at the time, Langley, BC, and the rents at the time, I mean, they were going for no more than like a one bedroom, no more than $725. A two bedroom was $800, and they're very spacious. I mean, there was other places that were a little bit less than that, but in my building that I was living in, I mean, it was like $800. So I mean, really, like a PWD check back then, the shelter rate, of course, that magic word shelter, it was at $375. And so, with rent, I mean, at, $400 for one person in a two bedroom, I mean, you only had to shell out like extra $75 out of your check, right? Out of your support portion. Yeah. And since that time, over the years, I've seen the prices going up and up and up. And, the underlying reason too is property taxes. They've just been skyrocketing up. And I mean, how high do they have to keep going in order for people to not be able to afford housing? I mean, PWD check, we know, they just keep getting a year skipped. We'll go a year, skip a year, and then you get a rent increase, but your incomes don't go up.
Yeah, and we should say one of the reasons why we're doing this episode, I mean, you're the host, so you can do whatever you want, really, right? But one of the reasons why it's kind of an add-on episodes based on Monday's podcast, because we talked a lot about definitions on Monday's podcast about how perverted and bastardized definitions of equity and equality lead to a bastardized system of PWD assistance and a whole perverse system of inequality for the housing and all that. So it was kind of important to kind of set that stage and talk about all those definitions. And so if anybody hasn't watched the previous episode, I actually encourage you to go back and watch that, because like I said, this is kind of an add-on to that episode, because what we wanted to do on the last episode, and we didn't really get a chance to really dive deep into it, is more of your own kind of case study about your own rent situation. We wanted to really dive into that, and we never really got a chance to, because it was mostly about it seems to be just about definitions, and we never really got to the case study part of it. So we're circling back and getting back to the case study part of the discussion, really.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people have been reaching out to me and asking, well, like, how do we fix the housing? I don't have the magic solutions to it. I do know that I put out some remedies. I mean, some people will say, "Well, I don't want RGI. I just want my rates increased where I can actually live in the kind of housing that I want." And yes, like if RGI gets extended over to market housing, where the vast majority of PWD do live, they live in in a traditional private market housing sector. If they call it below market housing, there's so many different wordings that are thrown out there. What is below market housing? I mean, is it 20% below market? Or, I mean, the way I look at it is that people don't have enough money to basically pay their rent. There's a serious problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why homelessness is really on a huge rise right now. I know there was back in Ontario, I was reading is that 90% of problems are regarding to homelessness in different sectors. And across our country, I'm sure there's lots of other stories that people can share. And I encourage them to come on to our podcast and send an email to us and come and talk to us about your housing situation. But with that being said, I'm going to talk about my housing situation and Sonia's housing situation.
Well, and sorry, Brent. I just wanted to interject one more time, and we were talking again. We were talking about definitions the last time, and you're basically going to talk about the definitions of what affordable housing is, because I just wanted to back up again and refer back to the previous episode, because again, my friend Kent. He kind of phones me and he debriefs me on the episode, because he watched the previous episode, and he thought that I spoke in error, like at the beginning of the last episode when I was talking about Michelle Stilwell and her saying it was equity in the system to cancel out the yearly PWD bus pass. It was $45 for the year, and she torpedoed it. She canceled it in favor of, like, it was what did it changed to a $75 or $80 a month bus pass instead. And the reason she gave for that change was she said it was equity in the system, and when my friend Kent saw that or heard that, he said, "Well, surely you misspoke." He thought that I had said something wrong, and he said, because I mean, he says no government would say that's equity to cancel something, and I said, well, exactly. So and I said that's part of the problem, is like he couldn't believe it that some MLA and some government would say doing that, canceling something that was helping 99.99% of the population, just torpedoing it and canceling it, that is equity in the system in their perverted, bastardized definition of that. That was their equity solution. So again, having said all of that, we're now going to be talking about the equity and perverted equity of your situation in the housing, of what government now terms as affordable housing. And it's just bananas. It's bananas what government's calling affordable housing now, because it's not affordable at all.
Oh, it's not, Neil. It's not affordable at all. I mean, even to the average person that's making six-figure salary, they're even struggling because of maybe they have other obligations in their life that they have to deal with, which I don't know who doesn't have obligations in their life to deal with. But if you're on a fixed income, a senior with a disability, and there's a lot of seniors with disabilities. As we get older, we get more disabilities. And so a senior or 65 plus, they don't even get the disability status. I mean, once upon a time, they used to be pensions. Yeah, that's right. People listening to this in BC, they used to be pensions at one time for persons with disabilities back in the mid 90s. Unfortunately, the government of the day decided to change that. They took away the pensions, and let's just call it a means-tested income. of last resort.
Income of last resort. I love that term.
Yeah, and I still don't understand why the government would do that. I mean, my doctor of the day, he's now long past retired, and he was just shocked. He thought it was still a pension, and because he said it's guaranteed. And I said, I found out, no, it wasn't. I told him, he goes, since when did that change? You see, so even doctors weren't up to date. Some doctors didn't know what was going on. The government made them believe so that people would be protected. They would have enough money to pay for their rent. And I said, well, will the rent go up? Well, yeah. When your rent goes up, annual rent increase, your income will go up, and you won't really feel any pinch on your support portion, Brent, because the government have a responsibility to take care of their citizens of BC, and that's where we are. He goes, and I hope that every other province does the same thing. Well, sadly, he was mistaken, because the rents have not been kept up. Right now, the buying power for rents, I mean, we're looking way back in like 1970s type of rent that in equivalent for what you would get of your buying power. Nobody can afford the high cost of these rents. I mean, they've gone up from, as I said earlier in the podcast to the listeners or anyone watching now. I'll just use Langley as an example because that's where I lived. That's where I grew up. My hometown. I love Langley. I miss Langley. I would do anything possible to move back there. Everything's accessible for me. I can walk to all the stores, shops, bike shops. I mean, clothing. I mean, you name it. Grocery stores. Coffee shop, well, yeah, I mean, every so often. Even when I lived there, I didn't go to coffee shops that much, really. It was close by, but it was something that if it was handy, I would, maybe go there and treat myself the odd time to something, to a coffee. But just knowing that it was there and that the rents they were reachable, and I saw them over time, Neil. I saw them over time going up and up and up, and I thought, whoa, what's going on here? And that's when we stumbled across a situation. Sonia and I stumbled across a really bad scenario that we exposed to local MLA's office at the time. And unfortunately, maybe, I don't know, that maybe they weren't up to speed on what was going on in the community. I'm not sure. I know it was a newly elected MLA, and probably not. He probably maybe didn't know what was going on. But we had applied at several corporate landlords before we actually had to move to Victoria. And all we kept getting was our doors shut in our face. It was like saying, well, your income has to be no less than $4,500 to $5,000. They said they'd be willing. One place said they'd be willing to do it at $4,000, and that was out in Abbotsford. That was way out in Abbotsford, where we even had applied out there. And I said, wow, that's crazy. I don't make $4,000 a month. And we applied out to a place in Nanaimo. And at the time we were in Langley still. And yeah, like people are saying, why would you want to move to Nanaimo? Well, we were looking at options of where can we find housing? Because the government always touted that people shouldn't have to move. They should be able to be in the community that they want to be in.
And maybe let's pause there, Brent, because you just kind of glossed over this housing income limits.
Oh yes,
housing income limits. We should stop here and really highlight the term housing income limits, or HIL. It's called for short. HIL, housing income limits. So I'm going to do a screen share, and I'm going to bring up something that you found on Twitter here. So let's switch the screen. And so here you can see on the screen, it says for HIL applicants. So it's housing income limits. It says to be eligible to rent the HIL homes, total household income must meet the eligible tenant household income requirements listed below, which are based on the most recently published housing income limits from BC Housing. This part is underlined. It is important to understand that your ongoing housing eligibility will be contingent upon your household income staying under the maximum income threshold each year. This amount usually increases each year. If you have any questions about this, please ask. And then it's got the current HIL rates. So the income limits. So for a one bedroom, the bedroom monthly rent of $1,680 or $1,060.80. If you're going to rent that at that level for a one bedroom, in order to qualify for that, you would have to have the income qualification of at least $3,417 per month.
Whoa!
Like that's the minimum, and then it says to a maximum of $4,800 and $4,833 per month, or at least $41,000 a year to a maximum of $58,000 a year. So that's just to rent a one bedroom at $1,000, which doesn't even exist. Even exist right now. I mean,
exactly.
I mean, we're talking pink unicorn country here, right? Because that $1,000 one bedroom does not even exist. So
no, not even in our building.
So even if you were able to find a $1,000 pink unicorn place, you would still need pink unicorn money of $3,500 a month to qualify to rent at that level.
Oh my gosh!
Right? So we'll move down the list. So now on the second one on the list is a two bedroom monthly rent, and this is your situation right now, Brent. It's almost identical to your rent right now. It says a two bedroom monthly rent of $1,440 per month, which is right around what your
ours is a little bit more than that, but it's
a little bit more. Yours about what is it?
1460.
60, yeah. So it's right around that, right? And so according to that, so that's right around what you're paying right now for your two bedroom. It says that you and Sonia have to be making almost $4,500 a month. That's the minimum. That's the minimum. And the maximum in order to qualify to rent the two bedroom is around, it says up to $6,000 a month, or at least $53,000 per year, up to a maximum of $72,000 per year.
Oh my gosh!
And so again, let's pause here and speak truth, and we'll park the unicorns off to the side.
I got one right behind me watching.
Yeah, we'll park the unicorns off to the side and remind people and remind all the MLAs that you and I, Brent, as I'm not a single person, but I was a single dad for a while, and I have a son. And with my clawbacks now, I'm actually only entitled to the same single amount that you are. Like I'm treated like a PWD single. So I only qualify. It's around $1,500 per month on provincial assistance, or $18,000 a year. So at $18,000 a year, well, even at a one bedroom, it's saying that we need to be making $3,500 a year for a one bedroom, and for a two bedroom, it says you need to be making $4,500 a month. Sorry, I did the year month, but yeah. So it's for a one bedroom, it's $3,500 a month, or up to $4,800 a month, and $41,000 a year, and so that's less than, we're making less than half that. We're making less than half of the minimum required. So we're only at $18,000 a year, and it says at minimum we need to be making $41,000 a year to qualify for the one bedroom.
Yeah, yeah.
to qualify for the one bedroom.
Just
And
for one bedroom. I
yeah,
mean, wow.
and then
Jesus.
it says that you need to be making $53,000 minimum. This is the minimum amount. Okay, so for minimum $53,000, you have the ability to rent a $1,400 a month 2 bedroom,
Hmm.
which doesn't even exist anymore. Like
No, they don't exist.
you and Sonia are super lucky because
Yeah.
those places right now they're in the $1,800 range or higher.
Yeah, my manager I was talking to just recently, before we had gone away, on our trip, I mentioned to her about these prices, and I said, yeah, they're so high. She goes, well, you think they're high in Victoria? You go out in Vancouver, Brent. She said they're even higher. Go out in the valley. Good luck trying to find any place. She says that's going to be the same rent as what you guys are paying right now. And if you do find something, you have to wonder what kind of condition is that place in, and
Yeah.
what the living standards are. And I said to her, well, like, these talk about corporate landlords, and she goes, there are some good landlords out there. However, there's also landlords out there that, they want to gauge the market as high as it will go. They put a wage stipulation in that you have to qualify in order to rent there. And I go, you didn't? I go, well, we didn't have to qualify for renting here. She goes, no, as long as you pay your rent on time, and you're a good tenant and you pay your rent on time, we have no problem.
Yeah.
And that's what we ran against. Before we go to the 3 bedroom prices, will blow people's mind too on the next
Oh,
chart. But
yeah. I can
I
go
just
back.
wanted to
I
quickly insert pardon
Yeah.
that that when we were living in Langley, we were living in a newly built place. It was like we watched it being built from scratch. We thought, wow, and I explained this on one of the previous podcasts way back when. And Sonia goes, wouldn't that be nice to live there? And I said, right, right. We'd never be able to afford to live there. Well, as it ended up, we actually could, because they weren't discriminatory against us. The owner said, as long as you can pay your rent, and they wanted proof. They wanted proof to, like, what is your proof of income? And a
Hmm.
lot of landlords, they want to have proof to to show that, hey, you can pay your rent on time. You haven't missed payments. You're a responsible tenant. You're not going to thrash the place. Yeah, etc.
And
And you
all that makes sense. All that makes
yeah,
sense.
and you
Yeah.
follow all the rules, right? The policies. Unfortunately, we were driven out of one of our units that we lived in. As soon as before, as we the same day we were moving in, the manager obviously felt that, they wanted to change things, and clear out 2 floors of the building, right? I mean, doing drugs, is really not the best, role model to do, to clear out, floors of the unit, right? So anyway, we couldn't even open up our door in our unit. We couldn't even open up the window. I mean, it was just nonstop problems. So we had to then relocate to a more expensive unit in the building because there was no other option. And before we had even made that decision, the manager had already rented out our unit, and we were still living in our unit. And the manager says, "Oh, by the way, I found, 2 couples, that are going to be coming in, and got your place rented. So would you guys decide you're going to take the other unit?" I guess we have no choice now. Sure. And well, there was 2 units to choose from, Neil. We had one unit that was 2 floors down from where we were, but it was dark and gloomy, and we never even had that option of renting the unit in the first place when we moved in, because we
Hmm.
didn't have access to the first or second floor to rent. And we didn't want the dark and gloomy one. Sure, the rent would have been the same, almost the same price at what we were paying, but it was like we would have no sunshine. It would have been very cold. It would have been like in a dungeon. And we thought, well, the problem, around the area, and we were trying to get, to the bottom of it, was there was this issue going on, and the stench was just coming into the unit, and we knew that we didn't want to put ourselves into that situation again. So yeah, I mean, people say, well, my gosh, like, so we made a deal with the management company, and they said, okay, fine, you know what, you can pay the rent. It's going to be a little bit more, right? And so we had to take the other unit. But when the lease was up, we had to move. Like, it was a clause in place stating that normally they can't normally do that, but they put a stipulation on us saying that, so when the lease is up, you guys are going to have to move, otherwise you pay the top price of what you're paying. And so Sonia and I looked at each other, we're just like, you know what, like, let's just look around. And we had given our notice in, and that was a bad move. People, I remember I was talking to an MLA about it. Oh no, you guys shouldn't have done that. Like, you can't, when I look back at it, it's like, you shouldn't have just gave your notice in without finding a place. But we figured, well, for sure, like, we're going to find a place. So let's just hand our notice in to our manager at the time. And she was livid. She was upset with us. Like, why would you guys do this? And I go, because we can't afford the rent. Because at the time, this was during COVID times, everyone, like, we had the rent subsidy. Like, we had that subsidy amount, was an extra $300. We figured, okay, like, we're in a good position. We can go and find another place to rent. Then the government decided that, well, it was actually benefiting people. And so let's just claw it off, and we'll let people keep, 175 of the money. So media basically came and talked to us and said, because I reached out to media, it was all over newspapers everywhere. Every media wanted the story. We had Global News come out and talk to us right on the premises, right outside, and cameras set up. And Sonia reminded me just the other day, yesterday, and said, remember when Global News came out and she asked us, what would you do with an extra $2,000? What would you do? How would that change your life if the government was to give you an extra $2,000 right now, and for you guys to stay living where you're living? Something. I'm not. What did you say, Sonia?
I move.
She said I would move. I would move because the rent was still high, but we would actually be able to find somewhere a little bit cheaper. But we'd actually be able to actually get by and enjoy life and buy clothes, new clothes, more vitamins, minerals, supplements, whatever we needed for ourselves, right? So unfortunately, when that didn't materialize, and we had talked to the premier at the time, and we held on to this information for quite some time. We were promised that not to release information at the time. And so Sonia and I sat on that information that it was going to be implemented back in only at 50% or maybe plus 25% at the time.
The COVID
supplement. So much
COVID supplement.
Yeah, and we were just like, so, like, because we were advocating to have it reinstated to $300. But we were told that yes, it would be minimum at 150, maybe plus 25. And at the time, the premier said he would keep advocating to have it reinstated. At the time, our then premier. I really miss John Horgan. He did the best he could at the time, and he promised me I will do everything I can to try to get that back in, the $300. But he said he was the only person at the table to not other people make the decisions, and it's not just him, right? And so going fast forward, they were going to discontinue that money. So we thought, oh my gosh, like, we're going to have to find another place. And so when we applied in Nanaimo, they said, no, I'm sorry, your income's not high enough. And they made us wait. I didn't even know. I had to make a phone call, and we had already given our notice in at the time. So getting back to that, I'd given my notice in. And of course, the manager gave me a form and said, yeah, you have 10 days to basically pay this liquid damage deposit amount owing. Oh my gosh, equal to the rent, equal to your monthly rent. Wow. So we had saved up money. Over damage deposits that we had got back, and we had just dogpiled it away in our bank, not wanting to give it to our landlord. No, I mean, we wanted to use it to, in the future. So those were damage deposits that we had got from the ministry at the time, over time. And they take it off as $20 off your check every month until it's fully repaid, right? So people are probably thinking, oh my gosh, that must be a lot of money. It was a hard decision. And first, then we thought, okay, like, we've got this place, right? And we're willing to pay this. And then we find out, now we didn't get the place. So panic mode, Sonia's anxiety went up the roof. Her sugar numbers, glucose numbers were elevated for quite some time, which is not good for her health. My anxiety was right through the roof, and of course I didn't have a family doctor to go and talk to at the time. I mean, I did have a clinic that I could go to that is a doctor. So if I needed to go and talk to, I got through it. I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to exercise. I'm just going to put my music on and mentally slow myself down and figure things out. So Sonia and I came to a conclusion. Okay, like obviously we can't get this place. Let's look for somewhere locally. Yeah, we can get to Langley Apartments. No problem. We can get in there. Manager made us wait 2 weeks, and our new manager took over the building. And she said, well, yeah, I mean, you guys pay your rent on time. I heard that you had revoked your notice to terminate your tenancy. I go, yeah. She goes, I'm sorry that you didn't get the other place. I go, well, that's fine. So we were in panic mode. They accepted our like, so we didn't have to give in our notice. They basically revoked it in time. They didn't rent out our unit. Thank gosh, because if they did, we would have been in a bad situation. Like we would have been homeless because there was nothing available at the time. Mm-hmm. Not that we knew that we couldn't get into Langley Apartments, but we found out after 2 weeks waiting. After even the manager made a phone call, which they don't normally do it the other way around. Like normally the manager is the one who gets the call from the new manager, right? Is doing a reference check. The manager actually called the other manager and said, hey, I've got 2 tenants here who applied and I'm waiting to hear back from you as a reference. Like, what's going on? Like, I need to know so I can rent out their unit. You're actually causing us to have less income for our property management. So it was, I could see both sides of it saying like, the potential that they want to make more money. So the manager says, oh, I'll get back to you. While time went by. And long story short, everybody, it was like 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Finally, the manager contacted her again and said, okay, like I need an answer. So she phoned head office. Oh, sorry, we have to decline them because their income's not $4,500 a month. Mm-hmm. And the manager's like, say what? Their income's not $4,500. Yes, I can vouch for it. I can photocopy it with their consent. I have to get the tenant's consent, and I can get them to A-OK it and put a signature on it for me to send it over to you. And I said, yeah, that's fine. Whatever you got to do. And so she says, so you're not going to rent to them. Well, if they can prove that they're making $4,500 a month, we'll go with it. But you know what? We'll go with $4,000. Like if they really want the place. And the unit was only $1,410 at the time.
Yeah.
And it was
super cheap. Which is super cheap.
Yeah, but it was advertised at $1,425. But she said, we'll give it to you for $1,410. Well, not knowing that your income had to be for like minimum $4,500, or they said, or $4,000 and go with it. And she goes, well, they pay the rent on time. I have no problem with them paying the rent. They just want a nice, safe place they can call home. Well, I'm sorry, but our policy is that. So she says, I'm sorry, guys. Like they're saying no. So it wasted a lot of our valued time trying to find places. And there was some places that were available. But the other landlord made us waste so much time that those places now were given away. We were told call at the end of the month. And we just kept running in roadblocks. Place out in Abbotsford, Main Street Equity Corp. I'll give that as an example. I'm not here to basically throw a bunch of corporate landlords under the bus, but I just want people to understand, like, this is not an isolated situation.
Yeah.
Same thing. At least the one manager, Neil, he said, like, I'm not going to waste your time. I don't want you to waste my time. He phoned me rather than me applying. And he said, okay, so pre-qualifying questions. Do you pay your rent on time? Yes. Can you provide proof of that? Yes, I can. What is your income? I said, well, my income is what the provincial government gives me for disability. I said, and he goes, well, they're pensions. And I go, actually, no, they weren't. They were changed back in the early mid 1990s from a pension to means tested. Yeah. So say what? And the guy was shocked too. He says, yeah, well, no, that is stupid. That was a stupid decision. He says, well, what government would ever do that? I said, that's like giving a senior a pension and then saying, oh yeah, thanks anyway, but yeah, you don't need a guaranteed income supplement, so we're going to take that away.
But it's equity in the system, Brent.
Yeah,
it's all equity in the system.
Yeah, but that was back then, right? And that was coming from a corporate landlord. He says, look, I'd love to rent you, but same thing stands, that your income has to be at that level. And so when I rewind, I go back in the time machine. If I could go back in the Doc Brown's time machine with Marty McFly from Back to the Future, if I could go back and look back at the same place that Sonia and I had applied at, same place. And the rent, how much was the rent back then, Sonia? Back in Abbotsford? Judy's place. Remember, we used to call it Judy's place.
What was it?
It was $800. I think it was $850 for a 2-bedroom.
Oh wow!
$850 for a 2-bedroom, wow. And it was fully, Neil, and it was fully renovated. Stainless steel appliances, dishwasher. I mean, it had everything in it. Mm-hmm. The only thing it didn't was washer and dryer, which was in a common area in the building. We said fine, but they were digital. You could just tap your card on it, and you don't need coins. So I thought, wait, this is a bonus from a place that we were renting from. We thought, hey, we're used to that. Yeah, that will work. And she goes, okay, so I'll do an application. And she goes, I just need a deposit down. And so, unfortunately, we didn't want to bother Sonia's mom and dad for the deposit. We figured we'll go through the ministry, we'll get the deposit, and we'll just get them to deduct it off our check month to month. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, she says, did you want to think about it? I said, yeah, okay. She was okay. A couple of days to think about it, get back to me. We looked at it, and we had found another place in Nanaimo at the time, and because we had gone, but we didn't take the place. I think we eventually found that place, but we didn't take the place because they wanted the deposit quicker than what the ministry was able to process. Yeah. So we ended up having to take a place in Nanaimo. And so that's kind of sad because we had our $45 a year bus pass back then, mm-hmm. Before the government took it away. So we were able to get around really easily. Decided to change that one. That was years later. Mm-hmm. So we moved to Nanaimo, but $725. We found a place cheaper in Nanaimo, $725 for the place. Yeah. I mean, wow, imagine that. So we thought, hey, this is great. And then the manager said 3 months later after we moved in, he says, well, just to let you know, you guys timed it up really good because it's going for $795 now. I go, what? How is that? Mm-hmm. And then he says, well, 5 months later, he says $850 now, and then $895. And he kept telling me the price were going up. And I said, what is going on? And he told me, the manager said, because the owner wants to make a profit, it's whatever the market will bear. And that terminology to me way back then, it didn't really mean anything. Like I don't know, I guess it didn't register like what's going on. Well, what was going on, everybody, is that the markets were going up and up and up and up. So when we timed it up to get into Nanaimo, it was, at the time it was good, but the building situation was not good because we had gone away on a trip to see Sonia's parents. And we got back and our whole place was just full of mold and mildew. Like it was, I don't know what happened there, but it was a very bad situation. We had to move. And so after that point, we just kept moving. Like it was a bad situation after bad situation. Mm-hmm. We missed our hometown, and that's when we had moved back to Langley. People said, well, I used to get harped on by one of my neighbors who I was in contact with at the time and said, you guys got to stop moving. You guys keep moving all the time. And so present time now is fast forward in the time machine is we're now in Victoria. It's beautiful. It's not where we wanted to really be. I remember one of the Breaking with Brent segments I did in Douglas Park in Langley. Mm-hmm. I remember that, and I said, this is home. This is where we need to be. Like, and we would do everything we can to get back there. Now the prices in Langley, looking at a 1-bedroom is like $2,000, pretty close. 2-bedroom is over like $2,500, $2,600, $2,700. Like PWD rates are not increasing here. And that's so-called shelter portion, $500 maximum, but only if you could prove that your rent went up above the $375 threshold.
And let's maybe switch gears a little bit and start talking about RGI, or rent geared to income, because we know that is the solution, right?
Yeah.
But the reason why, like on the thumbnail and on the title card, we've titled it, disability housing, divide and discriminate. And the reason, it should be obvious why we titled it that way, because, there are RGI units available, but they aren't available to everyone, right? They're only available to some PWD
Yes,
or some
that's
disabled,
right.
it basically works out to maybe, I don't know, 12 to 15% or so,
Yeah. Oh,
maybe get the RGI unit, right? And you always talk about the SAFERS thing, which basically is a portable, for all intents and purposes, it's kind of like a portable RGI where you can port over your RGI over to wherever you want to rent, and it's kind of like a subsidy, like a rent subsidy that you can port over to wherever you want to rent. So
yeah.
we need to talk about that as the solution, but for some reason the governments don't want to do it. They want to say, well, a 12% solution where we're giving 12% of the PWD on RGI, that's good enough. And I'm sorry, I don't think that's good enough, because that's not equitable, that's not equality, that's a lot of pink unicorns, right?
Yeah, I think that is a huge hot topic. I'm glad it's like a segue, because I was just thinking about that too, as you mentioned that, because just recently, yeah, well, recently meaning yesterday, on the 5th of June, there was Global News had put a story out about exactly about SAFERs. And yeah, there's seniors that are actually looking for affordable housing. They're finding it very, very difficult to afford the actual market rent. I mean, sure, there's a subsidized, but the rents are going up too, and so their incomes aren't going up. Again, I mean, those are seniors on a fixed income. PWD, persons with disabilities in BC, on a fixed income. The only difference is seniors have a guaranteed income supplement, and they've got their old age security. They don't have the PWD designation because they're a senior, apparently. But you know, as we get older, you know, PWD, yes, I mean, they're still seniors, but they lose their PWD designation, but they become under GIS and OAS, right? Or CPP if they have enough in CPP contributions. However, it's like pinning, the government likes to pin disabled against seniors as a parallel, it seems, and saying, well, you can have housing, but for seniors, but they're struggling. But PWD, yeah, but like you say, I mean, maybe 12% you can have into subsidized housing, but people in subsidized housing, they're struggling too.
Yeah.
Like they are, the cost of living is going up. And when that 125 was given last year in budget 2023, in BC budget 2023, I just want to make that very clear to people that are listening. In budget 2023, people in subsidized housing did not, and I repeat, did not get that $125. Their cost of living still went up. The buying power for food, you know, laundry detergent, I mean, personal items, hygiene items, their toiletries, you name it, basically anything to assist in their disability that they couldn't get covered under other subsidies that they may try to qualify for. Unfortunately, you have to qualify for those subsidies in order to get them. So they didn't get that 125, but PWD in market housing and the private sector, if you're renting in, I don't know, a basement suite or apartment building, a townhouse, a condominium, maybe from somebody, if you're lucky, that you know you can find something like that you can rent. You're still paying in that sector of housing. Yeah. So if your rent was $375, because that was what the shelter allowance was for over decades. I mean, it was since 2007. It was stuck at that until finally in 2023 it got changed to $500. Well, come on. I mean, come on, government. Where are you? You cannot find anywhere. Yeah. I mean, to rent at 500. We just went through a chart here that shows that. I mean,
let's go back to that chart now, Brent.
Yeah,
I'll bring it
up. But my corporate landlord, just before we go back, my corporate landlord even said $500. What? In what year? Like what decade are we in?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, because she said, you know, I was actually, she says, I was in subsidized housing, Brent. I go, really? Yeah, way back when with my child, and the rent back then, the shelter portion, she says, was $325. Oh, okay. It wasn't $275. She goes, no, it had just changed to $325. I go, okay, so that's going back some good time. She goes, right. And she says, that's pathetic. It needs to be changed she said they need to get rid of that shelter portion altogether. Get rid of it and redo the name of it and just call it social services, not poverty reduction. And again, it needs to be poverty elimination.
Yeah.
And poverty elimination. If we can call the ministry poverty elimination, and then eventually branch it over to social services. Okay, done.
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, and for those that are just joining us now, we actually have Dan and Ellen in chat, and actually Dan wanted to know what my shirt says. It says Brooklyn, New York. My wife brought it back from the Philippines. I've never been to Brooklyn, New York, but you've been close there, Brent.
Close to it, yes. We passed through there, and there was a tornado that was actually not too far from that area, just recently. So we timed it well when we got back.
Anyway, we have the chart back up, and I just wanted to recap again for those that are joining late. There's something called HIL, which is housing income limits.
Mm-hmm.
And so it says if you plan to rent a 1-bedroom apartment at $1,000. Now I don't know where you can find a 1-bedroom apartment for $1,000 nowadays, but if you could find a 1-bedroom apartment for $1,060, it says here, that in order to qualify for that, you would need a monthly income of $3,500 minimum. And that works out to a minimum annual salary or annual income of $41,000 per year in order to just qualify for the $1,000 1-bedroom unit. And then if you go up to the two-bedroom unit, which you and Sonia have, and your rent is close to this, actually, it says if you were able to find a 2-bedroom apartment for $1,440, in order to qualify for that, you need a minimum monthly income of around $4,500 per month, and so that works out to at least $53,000 per year minimum, and up to a maximum of $72,000 per year. So that's just to qualify for the 2-bedroom, and then we didn't cover the 3-bedroom yet. But let's say, for example, and this is totally this is totally a fictitious amount of pink unicorns up the yin yang, because this would never exist. But if you were able to find a 3-bedroom to rent at $1,760, so between $1,700 and $1,800 per month, it says here you would need at least $5,200 per month, up to a maximum of $7,100, almost $7,200 per month, or at least $63,000 a year in income, up to a maximum of $86,000 per year.
A 1-bedroom in this building here, and this is one of the cheaper buildings in the area here. It's going for $1,750. A 2-bedroom is $2,250. I know I said in the podcast previously I thought it was $2,150. It's actually $2,250. So $2,250 for a 2-bedroom in this building. A lot of buildings in Victoria are much higher than that. So that gives a kind of a ballpark figure for people going, oh my gosh. And again, PWD, $500 for your shelter. Maybe you can rent a bathroom, or for that rate. I mean, you have plug-in in there. You could probably plug
the pink unicorn behind your head is smirking, Brent. It's smirking at you. It's smirking.
You could plug a toaster or maybe a microwave or something, put it on the counter in the washroom, and hey, just make sure you don't get electrocuted, right? Or, wow, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe a hot plate or something. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of not really joking around, but It's really mind-boggling. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, the government needs to listen to lived experience stories. They need to sit down with PWD and the communities, their MLAs or MPs or MPPs need to sit down with the community, with the PWD, and find a solution that's going to work for them as an individual, on an individual basis, not household income.
Yeah.
Because the RGI right now, as it's designed, is designed as household income.
Yeah.
So if you have uh, if you have two or three people living in a household, and say a senior, one of the people is a senior with a disability. Now they basically lose that disability status, but now they are a senior. I know because I went through it. My mom, I lived that situation. My mom's blood pressure went through the roof. She had to get up her medication on her blood pressure medication at the time. It escalated her condition. God rest her soul. I still miss her so deeply. July 21st, next month, I'll be celebrating um, her memories. So it'll be a very hard day for me. Every year goes by, I always tell her, I miss you, Mom. I love you.
Yeah.
But I always remember back, and she told me to never give up advocating. Her last words to me when she was in a home, she told me, never give up advocating, Brent. Keep fighting for what you believe in. Don't stand down. You need to keep fighting. And I said, I will. I'll do it for you, Mom. And she wanted me to go on a train trip back then. And I did. I actually did. I said, I will go. And I actually, that's when I started my train travel. I enjoyed it so much, and that every often as I could, going fast forward, and we did. And this time around, I took Sonia with me, and we did this whole travel. Some of the segment that I went through, I had gone through with my mom only on Greyhound. I didn't go on train. So I knew some of these stops, and I was like, oh, wow. And we went through Chicago when we got there. And it said, showed you a Greyhound where the Greyhound depot had a sign pointing, but we didn't go down there. I thought, wonder if it's the same station. Probably is. But anyway, so looking back at that, that was one of her wishes that told me not to stop advocating, because she enjoyed traveling. And she says that people should just enjoy life, and get the most value for their dollar. She taught me to get the most value for my dollar, and she drilled it into my mind over and over. And people had questions for me. They had questions over time. And I wasn't really going to go down this rabbit hole, but I'm going to throw it out there in a nice way, and I'm not going to stomp on people's toes. But some people had brought to my attention, well, Brent, how did you pay for this? Like, did you use mutual aid on Twitter to pay for your travel? And I'm going to make it very, very clear to the people that are wondering and asking that question once and for all. No, I did not. Okay. I got some help through Amazon. Amazon, yeah, no cash. I strictly did it all myself. Sonia did it all herself. We saved and saved and saved and saved over years and years and years. Tax credits, housing housing supplements that you got as a tax credits. All these different credits that we got, we just kept saving up. Christmas money, birthday money, you name it. And yeah, we were fortunate that with my pass that I have for my disability, I was able to get a huge discount. Plus a BCA member, I'm a BCA member, so I got another discount on that too. So it gave me like rock bottom price.
Yeah.
Would I do it again? Absolutely. Would
And
I do it differently? Yes, I would probably do it a little bit differently, because the cost is actually a little bit cheaper doing it by coach. Some people say, well, like having a room on there, that's expensive. Yeah, you get your food with it. And then, you know where I'm going, but that's why I'm not going to throw the person under the bus.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Travel, not have food? It's
Yeah.
included. It's included in the rate. And yes, I got a huge discount on that, just so you know, bud. Okay, watching this, I got a huge discount. So if you want to go at me, you go at me, right?
But I
But
mean, but I mean,
the train ran you over already, right? So there you go.
anybody that's slamming you for
Yeah,
your train trip, though, I mean,
yeah,
again, we're
And that was
talking.
only a couple people. Like it was only like
Yeah, it's only it
three
only it
people.
only takes two people to cause a
Yeah,
fuss. But again, let's bring it back to reality. You and I
yeah,
both, Brent, are only making a maximum of $18,000 a year
yeah.
on provincial supports. That works out to around $1,500 per month. Now,
Hmm.
so of course, you and I both, and Sonia as well, are
Hmm.
we're not living high on the hog. So
Oh God.
so if you were going to afford your trip, of course you had to like save and save and
You have to
save and save.
sacrifice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
cut back on.
that's the only way you can do it. There's not like you're cashing in all your I don't know, stocks and bonds on
Yeah,
stock market
yeah.
or something. You don't have that, right?
Oh God, no. And even then, like, and I don't have those. And I was believed in, like, when I was just a little kid, I used to save money from when I did a paper route. I would save and save and save. And I'd be so tempted to go and get a bottle of pop or chocolate bar or chips. No, the odd time I would go and do my paper route as it was, like, maybe once a month, maybe twice a month. I would go and say one bottle of pop or a bag of chips. I could get a ball of pop, a bag of chips, and a chocolate bar for $1.05, including with the deposit, 5 cent deposit, $1.05, all three items.
Yeah.
But you know what? Sometimes I'd say, you know what? I'm going to put that money away, and I kept saving it, saving it. I went and bought myself a bike, a mountain bike. Oh, what? You can ride a bike? Yeah, I can ride a bike. I haven't ridden a bike in years, so I guess it's something that I could do. But for me, I'm fortunate that I miss riding a bike. I can't afford to go and buy a bike now
Hmm.
because they're too expensive because our rates haven't been kept up. I mean, I worked so much in my life over years. Before I was on disability, I just kept working, like, and I didn't know anything different. I just kept on pushing myself. And well, now here we are, right? But,
Yeah. It
uh,
catches
you
up to
know,
you, right?
yeah, yeah, well, it does, and
Yeah.
but I envy what I was able to accomplish back then, and I still was able to do it now. Amazing enough on what I get, but like I say, I had to sacrifice. You cut back on meals, you cut back on extracurricular activities. Do I go to a movie? No, I can't afford to go to a movie. My enjoyment, as you know, Neil, and listeners, like Sonia and I, well, what should we do? We'll go down, grab a cup of coffee. Go
Hmm.
downtown, grab a cup of
Yeah, that's
coffee.
that's the
That's our
big splurge, right?
Yeah,
The big
that's our
splurge.
our entertainment for
Hmm.
once in a while. I usually brew coffee at home because it's cheaper,
Hmm.
and that's what we did. We sacrificed by doing things in ways where we were able to save money. I mean, we got a rent increase this year. I'm going to throw that out there too because it's tied into the housing. We got a rent increase this year, and my manager said, "Well, don't worry, they're going to get something in the budget this year to cover the rent increase." I go, "Oh, well, they gave 125 last year, so it shows, well, yeah, they're going to give something, so don't worry, like, don't sweat it, it'll be good." And guess what? Sonia and I were so mad. We were watching the budget,
Got the big zero.
and
Can't,
zero,
I can't even
zero,
do
no
the
mention, no
there.
mention of disability increase, not even the word, not even any word of iota. Only thing that came out of the budget word was no government likes to deal with poverty.
Hmm.
My jaw dropped. My jaw dropped, Neil. I
It's
was
it,
so
it,
pissed
it's
off.
it's almost like they're saying, "You guys that are disabled, you're annoying. Just go away."
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, don't pay your manager your
Yeah.
rent increase because we didn't give you an increase. And I said to my manager, well, so I didn't get increased, so does that mean I don't have to pay my rent increase? Well, no, if you don't pay your rent, we will have to evict you, and then you'll be homeless
Homeless. Yeah.
because you can't find anywhere affordable housing, Brent. I
Yeah.
mean, go on a waiting list, go on a 20-year waiting list, but
Yeah.
then you have to then you then have to then get into housing, then you'll be under their guidelines, and then you have to go and deal with that. Good luck with that.
Yeah. And we are at the end of the hour already, Brent. But I just wanted to, like, we're gonna sum everything up a little bit,
Yeah,
and so we've talked about how it's easy to pervert things like equity and equality and autonomy, like that we talked about that on the last podcast, the one previous, and that stuff is still happening with word perversion and definitions. So the government can turn around and say, well, only offering rent guaranteed income to 12% of the disabled population, that's good enough, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
only offering portable GIS things like we give to seniors through the Safers program, to only giving it to them and not to people with disabilities. That's good enough as well. You know, and I mean, it's not good enough because it's not equality. It's not equitable. It is discriminatory, right?
Yeah.
When you're telling somebody that they can't rent, that you're not eligible to rent there. You're not eligible to rent someplace because
it's a gut punch, Neil.
Yeah, because you're not making enough money. You can't afford to rent here. Sorry.
Well, to me, it comes across as a total gut punch when a manager says, "Sorry, we can't rent you because your income's not high enough," or "We don't want you using your support portion because what are you going to live on?" And it's a total failure. Like, I feel like so down and out. Like, you're so depressed, thinking, "Well, I just want a place to live. I just want to have a place to live I can call home," and being told that, well, you should be able to be and live in a community that you want to be in. Well, I hear this every day. Like, Sonia tells me this every day, you guys. I don't want to live in Victoria. And I echo that. I don't want to live in Victoria. I like Victoria. It's beautiful.
I tell my doctor every time I see
Sonia tells her doctor every time she gets her prescription refilled. Her doctor phoned her up just yesterday. He called her up and refilled her prescription over the phone and said, "Oh, hi, how was your trip, Sonia?" I love his accent, Neil. He has it's like an English accent. "Hello," he goes, "How are you, Sonia?" And then he was on speakerphone. I go, "Hey, doc." He goes, "Oh, hi, Brent. How are you?" And because and he's my doctor too. From like a drop-in clinic. I don't have a family doctor, but I've known him for many years. And so I said it was great. I said, "Sonia had a real bad cough." And, "Oh, I'm glad you got rid of that." But it didn't make it enjoyable. It really didn't make it as enjoyable of a trip for her. The last part of the segment of the trip, it got better for her. Like, it was getting better, and I saw it was getting better. Down in Florida, the temperature actually helped her a lot. It almost, I think it killed the whatever she had.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
It pretty well wiped it out, right?
Yeah.
But it was at the tail end. But I mean, long story short on it is, people should be able to be in the community that they want to be in. I miss Langley because like I said earlier, it's got everything there that we need. The doctor's there. I mean, everything that in the community has to offer. Beautiful park, just that sense of community, that sense of home, and that you can call home. Here, transit is just not as accessible for me as I need it to be. I spend an hour to go to grocery store, like one of the big ones. I mean, wow. Sure, you can pay a delivery company to go and have it delivered. Now you got to pay all these delivery fees. And we've used them because it's too heavy to carry all the way back. Yeah. And of course, that's another expense too, right? But there, you could just jump on a bus and go to the store and grab what you need, and have a variety of stores to choose from within walking distance. So when there was a bus strike, it didn't faze us. I mean, we just walked around, went to the stores. Oh, okay, there's a bus strike here. Like we're messed up when that happens. So I have to knock on wood. So what I want to see from the government, I want to see RGI. I want to see it extended over to PWD in market housing. I also want to see it based on the individual, not the household.
Yeah.
So that it creates autonomy for the person to make that decision where they want to live, where they want to be. They don't have to be in BC housing. They can be in market housing. They can live in Peter Pan apartment building, okay? Or they can live in Batman housing apartment building, whatever you want to call it, right?
So basically some kind of expansion of the Safers over,
that's right.
to the PWD, right? That's what you want to see.
Absolutely.
And I mean, government could easily do that.
It can easily be done. I was actually speaking to a senior who lives in the same company that I rent from at another building, and he knows some of the MLAs. He knows of them. He never worked with them. He actually used to work for the BC government. He told me, and he's a senior. Everyone, he's a senior. And he lives in there. I said, "Well, why would you live in this building here? It's an old building." Why? Because I call it home. I call it home. My unit is kept up to the best it can. I can't afford. I can't. I mean, sure, he's got a pension basis. I can't afford, Brent, to go and spend all my money to a corporate landlord. Like, I mean, if I wasn't getting safers, like regular rent, no. I mean, I might as well just go and live in my friggin' car then, right? Because that's what the government wants, either homeless or live in a car. So he told me, just keep advocating, and he says it's so easy for the government to do this. They're just taking their time. I don't know. He says what thrill they get. The word he uses, what thrill they get out of not doing it. He said procrastinating not doing it means kicking the can down the road, let another government deal with it. He said the government's in power now. They haven't called an election. They can get all this done. I said, well, they'll probably do it as a pre-election goodie. Right. So promises rather than action are different words, Brent. There's words, but then there's action of actually saying, I'm actually going to do this right now, because it doesn't cost them anything to do it.
Yeah.
You know, he says all it does is change.
It's actually costing them way more not to do it.
It costs them more to for every PWD or every senior to not give the proper income, because it costs more in our healthcare system. It puts more strain on our healthcare system, because as people have more ailments, it costs the healthcare system more money. So you actually try to alleviate the best way you can to let the person live as comfortable as they can in their day-to-day lives. He says, as we get older, you know as well as I do, you get more ailments, right? I go, this is true. We can't stop that unless I don't know, unless we're made as a robot or something. I don't know. He goes, yeah, right. But his view was it can be done. I know I had the minister on for Minister of Social Development and Poverty Reduction, and that was one of the recommendations that I had mentioned to Minister Malcolmson at the time, was extend it over from the SAFERS program over to PWD and market housing, and also lift up the barrier so that if people want to move to another province, make an in partnership in collaboration with other premiers, that PWD don't have to apply for PWD status wherever they want to move to. Seniors don't have to. They can just move wherever they want to.
Yeah.
So why do PWD not have it? It's like that bus pass. Some can have it, some not. Some can have subsidized housing, some not. Let's change it.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
We're not worthy. We can change this. We can. Have the can-do attitude. Let's change this. And those are solution-based. I know, Dan, yeah, you're probably like this is solution-based, everybody. Go to your local city council. Go to your mayors. Tell them, hey, maybe they can put pressure on the government. If the government representative in your constituent is not listening to your needs, and the government's not listening, go to your local mayors. Talk to your MPs or MPPs in Ontario. Like, talk to them and get them to put pressure on it. Get the movement going. Let's make life better for people so that everybody can have an RGI, rent geared to income, and is based on the individual. And I really want to stress the point. I want people, and I'm not telling people what to do. I'm just saying that I think it would be best for people, because housing's not going to come down in price. Okay, let's don't kid ourselves here. Housing is not coming down in price because the property taxes keep going up. And why are they going up is the building materials also. It's globally, it affects it globally. I learned this when I was in the US also, and that they told me too, that the global chain is that as prices go up on the goods, the services, we all pay it as consumers. It gets passed down the line, and at the end of the day, we all pay for all these extra, costs. And I learned that in college too. So that's why I know part of that too. But I blend in from what I heard.
We have somebody in chat that says, okay, I was told to call an MP, but what do I say? And so I was about to text back or write back and say that that everybody should ask for a portable RGI solution, So it's rent geared to income solution, portable RGI solution, similar to the SAFERS thing of the seniors. What does it stand for again, Brent?
It's the SAFERS. It's oh geez, now I lost my thought here. But it's basically
basically a rent subsidy for people that are senior. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a seniors program that's designed to give seniors a basically a subsidized housing so that they don't have to pay the huge market housing costs. It's no more than 30% of their income. With that said, I know that I was mentioning about my mom and I, my brother, we had gone through this situation. That's why I know, because my mom was a senior living in her house, and she rented a house, and it got to a point where my mom didn't know anything about this Safers program, so she applied for it from a help of when my neighbors had told her about it, that she should really look into it. So she applied for it, and so here's the catch. That's why I'm advocating to have it based on the individual, not the household, because it got to a point where my mom's pension, okay, so she had OAS, she had GIS, she had CPP, she had other some other contributions that she had paid into a local grocery store as dividends. They paid her out, but then the government clawed it off her because they said they classified it as unearned income. I fought with the government on it, and I said, she did her shopping there. That's her money. Like, she got up her pension. She shopped for it. And so you got to take it away for, so the grocery store said, here's a dividend back because this is what, thanks for doing business with us. And then you want to take it away. I demanded them to do it. They still didn't do it. They clawed it off her. I wouldn't let it go. I wouldn't let the narrative go. They finally gave it back to her after I said, well, my mom's actually seeking legal advice from one of our neighbors who's a lawyer. So all of a sudden, my mom had a check.
Yeah.
My mom had a check. And I said, well, like I said, I'm in good, good talking rapport with the neighbor, as much as maybe I missed delivering his newspaper. So he was upset with me at the time. Oopsie. I took a spill on his driveway, and
you mentioned lawyers, Brent, and I don't necessarily mean to take a dig at David Eby, but David Eby himself was a lawyer in his past life, or so he's a guy that and I mean, he was the Attorney General, so he's a guy that should know all about equity and equality and autonomy and justice. Those are the four terms that we really hammered home in the last podcast. Equality, equity, justice, autonomy, right? And Mr. David Eby, our current premier, should know all about it, and all of our MLA should know all about the definitions of equality and equity, right? But they just ignore it, like the example that I gave on the last show about the bus pass, of it being equity in the system, right? And like I said earlier, that my friend Kent thought that I misspoke, because he said nobody in the right mind would ever say that was equitable. Nobody in the right mind would ever say that, right?
Well, I mean, yeah.
Except they did. They did say that.
Yeah, they did. And I mean, and I have a lot of seniors in our community, in our neighborhood, and I tell them, well, like, I see them getting on the bus with their seniors bus pass. I said, well, only disabled people could only wish that we would have that. No, you have them. And some of them are like, they didn't know. I said, no, like my friend has one. I said, well, when did you talk to your friend last? Oh, geez, that was back. I lost contact because my friend actually lives out in Lethbridge, and moved out, and and moved from BC out there, and said, oh yeah, so your friend had the bus pass? Yeah. Well, that was back in 2016. What? They lost contact, and they talked, but they never really brought up that topic about bus passes. Said, well, you might want to talk to your friend, because like, that's what happened. They took it away. And they go, whoa, well, I have a bus pass. I said, yeah, but you're a senior. So what they do is they excluded the disabled. So when I mention about exclusion, and that's what happened with my mom, like, she had to make an awful decision about household income. So it was either I had to go or my brother had to go, because the household income could not exceed the maximum umbrella total amount. And I know we've had Cassandra on and before, and we talked about that in Alberta, where I think the household income, I believe, she could quote me, better on this. I believe it's $42,000. I believe it is that it can't exceed. Now that's in total income coming into the household. I want to see that changed as an individual. You know how many people that we can get unhoused, that are unhoused, into housing if they changed this and made it as an RGI, rent geared to income, and got people housed? I mean, there's so many empty units that are available. I mean, there's I know we have some in this apartment. Even though it said there's no rental available, I can guarantee there is. And so the landlord still benefits. Like, there is no shirt off the landlord's back. They're still going to get their money end of the day, rather than the government wasting all this money into like food banks. And actually, I'm going to do another segment regarding that one. I won't even go there on that one, but because I'll just keep the show going.
Right, yeah.
But the long story short is that it affects people's lives, their decision making. And that really escalated my mom's condition. That's when we had to put her into a home because, it was just not a good thing. So, I mean, things can change, right? And it's not difficult to change these things where people can become housed and keep them housed. Let them live in a community that they want to live in. I can tell you where I want to be. So we're looking at it. But here's the other kicker before we end the show. So the ministry says, I can move you, but your rent has to be substantially reduced. Are you kidding me? What year was that written? That was actually written just recently, just last year, was actually implemented as a moving supplement that PWD get in BC. So the wording is, again, your rent has to be substantially reduced and the ministry will pay for the moving cost. You need to give them 3 quotes for moving companies. They will go with the lesser cost. Okay. So it cost a nice chunk for us to move over to Victoria. But yes, we got this place because our rent was substantially reduced at the time. But now our rent has been ticking up over time because of that rent increase. This year, 3.5%. So ours took quite a big jump. And so that's an extra $25 each per month that we're having to pay each on our rent. We did get no rent increase from the government this year, so we had to cut out other areas in order to do that. Plus, we're able to go away. So you guys can figure all the math on that one out. And 50% of our income almost on rent. That's a lot. That's a huge chunk.
Yeah.
Imagine if it was 30%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to end on that note where people watching this, reach out again. I'm going to summarize it. Reach out to your local mayor within your city, your town. If you can't get an answer, let them know to contact their counterparts, provincial government, your local MLA who represents your community. Tell them that you want rent geared to income. You want it based on the individual, not the household, okay? If we echo this across every single sector across this country, we can make change. Don't count on the government, the federal government, to say, well, we're building housing, record housing. If that was to be done, it would have been done decades ago. I remember when I was a kid looking through the newspaper, my mom would say, why are you looking at housing? Because I need to look for my future, because eventually I'll be moving out of here. Well, yeah. I kept an eye on the prices, and they were affordable. They were reachable. What happened now? That same place, I look back, guess what? I saw it for $425. One place, 1 bedroom. Guess how much it's going for now, Neil?
I don't know, like $2,000.
$3,600.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
that unicorn is laughing at you, Brent. It's laughing at you.
Yeah.
It's laughing.
$3,600. It was actually, I looked at it was a house, and it was a 2-bedroom and a den, and it had a walk-in shower. Like, it was an older place by that time, but it was built to the owner had changed it, so it was just a walk-in shower. And I looked at that and I thought, wow, I thought maybe that was something that was, well, fast forward, modernized then, but the guy was actually made it like almost like an outhouse kind of deal. And I thought I saw the pictures of it, and I actually went and saw it. I was so curious. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be a dream? Yeah. And my mom says, no, don't bother. You got a home. But I looked at it, same place, $3,600, but that was 5 years ago. So I wonder what it's going for now.
Yeah. Anyway,
So,
we always say that we're only gonna be like half an hour, and then it goes longer.
It's like the never-ending story. The never-ending story that keeps going.
But yeah, this was a good episode.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next podcast. Please subscribe, pass this on, share, like if you like the content that you see. Subscribe. If you want to be a donor, like a sponsor for the show, reach out to Neil or myself, and we will make arrangements with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Take care.